Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition or episode of the Citizen Representatives podcast. My name is Adam. I'm here with my... Wait, let me back up. Let me restart that.
Perfect.
My name is Adam. I'm like wanting to be you now.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, welcome to
it's we're
another
talking
episode. We'll talk about what?
It's because we were talking about walk-ins, right?
I was looking at your name and I have kind of I don't know if I have a visual dyslexia, but I do say the wrong thing sometimes. I say it backwards.
Well, bloopers are always nice.
So my name is Tyler. Welcome to another episode of the Citizen Representatives podcast. I'm here with my friend Adam. Adam, how are you today?
Doing well. Thanks, Tyler. How was dinner tonight?
Dinner was great. We had BLTs, so those are always welcome.
So get this, that's what we had.
Are you serious?
No kidding. Yeah.
Okay, so we had, the bacon, of course, it's all over the house. You just smell it. It's just inviting. We're all organic right now, so there's a particular mayo brand at the, it's non-soy. It's made out of avocados and some sourdough bread. So really good. My wife really goes all out, and
that's
really
what we do. But we're not big into mayo, so I think they make mayo with the same stuff they make vaccines, and so we've
the
never
actual
been.
Mayo. I'm sure they do that with Miracle Whip because it's just so just weird. I mean,
yeah. So our BLTs they're a little bit dry. We kind of rely on the tomato to juice it up, but
yeah,
whatever.
Oh, cool. Well, we're on the same wavelength, at least food-wise today. Hopefully we're on the same wavelength in the other realms that we'll be talking about today. Are you able to breathe now that the CDC decree came down from on high?
It has been so nice because Salt Lake might as well be New York or LA. Everybody wears a mask. They wear it outside. They just, I don't know. I guess they're convinced that they help. And so, but I've been going into stores and, if the store ownership managers ask me to put a mask on, I'd put it on. But if people walk up to me, I'll just say, well, that vaccine works, right? It's 100%. We're all good. Good to go.
No,
CDC guidance.
I thought you were one of those types who wore the mask when you're driving alone, and you wore it when you're swimming, and you wore it when you're showering. Were you not that way?
Making out with my wife, for sure. Yeah. No, just like Kamala and her husband.
Yeah, that was pretty weird. It wasn't even like it was awkward. It was like, oh yeah, we do this all the time.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen this, there's a short video. It's only like 10 or 15 seconds long of the vice president and her husband. And they were getting out of a car or something, and they kissed, and they were both masked, and it was just so weird. Along with so many other weird things, I'm assuming the president, and I hesitate to say the president. I usually like to just call him Biden because it hurts my feelings to say the president. I know. I'm assuming, is vaccinated, and he's always wearing a mask somewhere, unless he's next to Jimmy Carter, who's like 105 years old, and his wife, who is equally as old. Unless they're in close quarters with them.
3 feet 6 inches tall. Who knew?
I know they're midgets. It's I don't know.
I don't think anybody can explain that.
Angles.
I don't think anybody can explain that.
They're blaming it on camera angles or something weird. I'm like, how? Or the lens. It's like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Well, one of the weirdest things, along with. No, I won't go there. It's just so many unexplainable things going on right now. It's quite the time to be alive, and we're just here trying to ride that wave, and I don't know. Good times.
Yeah, no, it's been nice to go places and feel like, hey, just following the CDC guidance, mask off.
So this whole time, nobody has ever asked me to put on a mask. And it's not because I haven't been wearing a mask or I have or haven't been wearing one. It's just, I don't know if it's just so many people haven't been wearing them here that, like they don't want to make a big deal about it, or I don't know what, but I don't know. It's just interesting. You know,
You live in a better area. I've had, I've had a lot of people look at me if I had my mask under my nose or something. And I had one guy last summer in a Home Depot, some punk, 20, millennial, 26. Is that a millennial still? Anyway.
it's getting on the tail end of the millennials, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, he, some punk with some hippie with long hair. Not that I'm against long hair, but he was a total hippie, and he came up, get that mask out, buddy. I was like, yeah. I said some choice things to him, but we had words.
Anyway, it's been such a weird, just this last year and a half. Actually, it's been a really weird, like 5 years. Since Trump got in, everything that was normal was a scandal, and everything on the other side that was actually scandalous was brushed under the rug. Maybe that's just normal for that type of thing, but it just seemed really weird to me. Just a lot of just like I say, so many strange things going on. So we've been talking about, well, let me back up. Citizen representatives, again, for those that follow along with us, it's an organization that we're starting. It reduces citizen representatives. The idea actually comes from a book by an author that both Adam and I follow, J.J. Dewey. The name of the book is Molecular Politics, Fixing America. And citizen representatives reduces corruption in politics by uniting as legal citizens to elect lawmakers with the iron-clad agreement that they will vote on bills according to a majority vote by citizens in their district or state. So that's what we're ultimately trying to do is bring this idea out there and to actually make some changes with the way that people are elected and the way that decisions are made in Washington, D.C., because we know that as soon as someone gets over there, almost immediately they become corrupted. Not like I'm paying people to kill people, not like that type of corrupted. Just there's a groupthink that's there that is very difficult to get away from. And with that, trying to make the decisions here in a district or state, it's gonna reduce that considerably. So keep that in mind when we're talking about these types of things. We're going to try to relate a lot of these things to things that we could do as citizens and votes that we can make to try to bring that to fruition. So we're talking about the masks, the CDC. The big news of the past few days is the CDC has dropped their mask guidelines now for the vaccinated only. I think that from my understanding, their guidance on the unvaccinated with regard to masks is still the same. Do you understand it the same way, or is it?
Yeah, it's going to defer to, local governments, I guess. Not that I don't think they have any actual regulatory authority. They just say, here's our guidance, and now governments can do what they want with it. And I think the White House certainly seems to be behind this. And of course, I think they would like to see as many people vaccinated as possible. That's their end game. And I think this move, it is just weird. The timing of it's weird, as you know. Contradicts everything they've been saying all along, and all of a sudden they do this, and it seems very political for a lot of different reasons.
So the CDC, this is what had a lot of people scratching their heads. the CDC is pushing the vaccines, which is fine. That's what you would expect them to do. Being fully paid for by the pharmaceutical industry. I'm just kidding. Like, I don't know that for sure.
Funded by the pharmaceutical industry.
But you would expect them to do that because that's the MO, is to push drugs when, that's just the way it is. It's
modern medicine.
They don't talk about vitamin D, getting, the importance of getting out in the sun and, good nutrition and things like that. Okay, that's beside the point. They're pushing you to get vaccinated, and then they want you to act once you're vaccinated as if you haven't been vaccinated. They didn't want the go back to normal type deal, which, like I said, this has had everyone scratching their heads. You're pushing the vaccine, but on the other hand, you're saying continue the lockdowns, continue the mask mandates, continue the quarantining, continue all these things. Why? And so there's this, it's not just, this is a bipartisan question that has been asked up to this point. And of course it was Republicans first, and then later on as it became really obvious of, why, then another kind of chorus started to come in from the other side of the aisle. So it's been very interesting, to say the least, just the way that they've been rolling this out. We know the CDC, Fauci in particular, has flopped on so many different issues that it, like we said before, he's been on both sides, so he can say that he's been right. I don't know. We talked about this last week, that there's more and more evidence coming out that the virus came from the Wuhan lab. And in addition to that, it's been proven that there were grants given to this Wuhan lab through the NIH, which Dr. Fauci runs. Now, that doesn't mean that those grants were given specifically to fund what they call gain of function research, which is taking a virus and making it so it's more virulent and making it worse to try to study its effects and things like that, which Dr. Fauci has vehemently denied. There's an ongoing spat right now between him and Rand Paul, a senator from Kentucky. Is he the senator from Kentucky?
Right.
And so they've had a tit for tat in these hearings, and Rand Paul has basically accused him of funding the Wuhan lab. Well, Fauci says we didn't. Those grants didn't. He doesn't say that we didn't give them grants. He does acknowledge that these grants were given, and it was, but he says they weren't given to fund gain of function. Now, like we talked about last week, money is fungible, meaning $1 is the same regardless of where it goes. So it goes into one pot. It's hard to say that it wasn't used for other things. Right. So again, this evidence is circumstantial, but it's very strong circumstantial evidence that, and there is direct evidence that the NIH funded the Wuhan lab in some measure. So this is what everyone's thinking. Not everyone, but a lot of people are thinking, okay, the heat is on Dr. Fauci right now. So in order to get the heat off himself, he's going to drop these mask mandates for the vaccinated, which should have been the kind of idea from the very beginning. So there's a lot of people are saying that this is what is happening. Now, is that really the case? I don't know. I've read things that the White House was actually taken aback by how quickly this was pushed out, and they were almost as an afterthought given a heads up that the CDC was going to change this. Now, this just goes to under what branch of government is the CDC? Do you know, Adam?
I would assume they're under the executive branch, right? Doesn't the executive make a decision on who the head of it is?
It would seem. Or are they under the unelected fourth branch of the government that has no oversight or jurisdiction, is just can do whatever they want?
Department of Defense, the Pentagon?
Yeah, that one.
Could be.
That's a big thing to to talk about. I don't know that we're going to really go there right now, but when President Trump was president, it seemed that he had no control over what these agencies did, even though he's the top of the executive at the time, the top of the executive branch. It seems that if you are the top of the executive branch, you could do anything you wanted to anything in that executive branch constitutionally. I don't know that the courts would hold that up, but just to me, looking at it from that perspective, anybody should be fair game for their job to be gone, and or any even I don't know. I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here about the way that I think that things should be in the government. If you have the executive, you have the judicial, and then you have the legislative branch. There are three co-equal branches of the government, but the executive now has these unelected people who just seem to run amok and do whatever they want, and they're told by a president one way or the other to do things, and they don't. There's the employees of the federal government, by and large, I've seen data that says 95% of them are Democrat. Now, I wouldn't doubt that at all. I'm not saying that they're bad people necessarily. Most of them, by and large, are good people. But there's a groupthink that goes on there, that things have to be a certain way. And this is why Trump was such a disruptive force, because he came in and did things that were a little bit different. I mean, they really weren't that much different than what many presidents had done before. But they were different enough that people really had a hard time with them. Okay, so we have CDC drops their guidelines for the vaccinated. Evidence is coming out that more and more evidence coming out that with the Wuhan lab. Now you have Texas. Now Texas is an interesting case. Most of you know that if you're paying attention to politics at all, that Texas in March, the governor of Texas said, we're dropping our mask mandate, we're opening up 100%. And the Biden White House said, this is Neanderthal thinking. So they were, this is so backwards. How dare you? And there were all sorts of people who were just literally flipping out that Texas and Florida eventually, shortly thereafter, did the same. And now, a couple days ago, Texas had the first 0 days of COVID since last year. And I think this was one of the other reasons that they dropped the mask mandate, because they're starting to look really bad. The people in charge of the CDC, there are all these people who are going about their business. Down here where I live, people are just going about their business. There's, by and large, no hysteria. There are still some people who are in that mindset because they watch the news hardcore. But by and large, there's kind of two sets of things going on right now. You have people in certain states that just go about business like they used to, and then you have people who are scared to go outside. What's your take on this?
Oh, where do I start? Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly, if you want to look at evidence for, wearing masks or not, just look at, number one, look at the trends, right? When everybody was masked up, we still went through that spike in the fall and the winter. Didn't matter. Everybody was masked up at that time. Everybody had mask mandates for the most part. And the states that suffered the worst, by and large, were those states that were most masked up and had the most restrictions on, distancing and shutdown of business and whatnot. And so, yeah, I mean, somebody has to take the lead, and God bless Texas and Florida and other states. I don't think South Dakota ever had a mandate for any of this, but Texas and Florida are big states with huge populations. They took the risk, and it proved to be good so far. The numbers continue to go down, and so it's one more. Of course, politically, it just flies in the face of what we've been told is the actual science. But because it's such a political hot button issue, it gets taken and either ignored, where there's positivity in response, and these governors have actually done a good job. It just doesn't matter. I mean, the mainstream media just doesn't pick that up. They just ignore it, but they also ignore what mask mandates have actually done. And then all of a sudden the CDC throws, I think they threw everybody off. And that's interesting that you think that that Biden's administration was, caught off guard, because it almost, things were happening throughout the world at the time, with Israel, and you got stagflation, and you've got gas prices, and you got all these things going on that were indicators of bad policy, and things weren't going well, and the White House was fielding questions daily about how they were doing things. And so I could see it also on the other side, where they say, we've got to do something, we got to throw a bone to the world, to this country. And so let's, the CDC is determined, outdoors you don't need a mask. Okay, we can roll with that. Well, let's do it, but we can still be kind of punitive, right? If you had the vaccine, and you don't have to wear a mask indoors. So here's your, they'll call it an incentive, but if I don't have the vaccine, and if you've got the vaccine and you're fully protected, then you should. Who cares, right? You don't care about me. I obviously don't care if I don't have the vaccine. So it'll be the big thing going forward will be seeing how intent they are on trying to enforce vaccine, validating that people have it. Now certain, you go to a ball game, they can do it there. You can't do it everywhere. You can't go into a Costco, and I don't think Costco wants to stand there and tabulate who's vaccinated and who's not. But we've lived through a crazy year, so who knows? It'll be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah, I think we might have mentioned this, that the government, at least Biden's White House, has said, we don't have really any interest in being the ones who come up with these vaccine passports, so to speak. They want the private sector to come up with these things. I'm like, oh, great. This is awesome. Can't wait for that. So a couple of months ago, there was another hearing, and Rand Paul was again peppering Dr. Fauci with questions, and he basically said, you're vaccinated and you're wearing 2 masks. What's up with that? Is this for show? Okay, yeah. So and back then Fauci, again, no, this is not for show. This is, back to what you're saying, this is the science. I don't remember specifically what he said, but it was along those lines. It was, we're following the science. So now this comes out, I think it was yesterday. Let's go here to this clip from Dr. Fauci on Good Morning America.
Before the CDC made the recommendation change, I didn't want to look like I was giving mixed signals. But being a fully vaccinated person, the chances of my getting infected in an indoor setting is extremely low. And that's the reason why in indoor settings now, I feel comfortable about not wearing a mask.
You're telling everybody to wear a mask, whether they've had an infection or a vaccine. What I'm saying is they have immunity, and everybody agrees they have immunity. What studies do you have that people that have had the vaccine or have had the infection are spreading the infection? If we're not spreading the infection, isn't it just theater?
No, it's
not.
not.
The vaccine and you're wearing 2 masks. Isn't that theater?
No, that's not. Here we go again with the theater. Let's get down to the facts.
I didn't want to look like I was giving mixed signals. But being a fully vaccinated person, the chances of my getting infected in an indoor setting is extremely low. And that's the reason why in indoor settings now, I feel comfortable about not wearing a mask.
You can't hear that? Okay. Well, I'll edit it in. basically, Fauci said what I said. He said it was actually today. He didn't want to send mixed signals. When in actuality it was theater. Rand Paul pressed him, is this theater? And he said, no, this isn't theater. So we've got that going for us. Now you have people saying that they don't want to be seen as Republicans, so they're going to wear the mask regardless of if they're vaccinated or not.
That's the best one of all.
They don't want to be lumped in with the MAGA crowd, and it's very embarrassing to be seen without a mask nowadays. This is so weird.
Yeah.
Now we're finding that the teachers union gave CDC verbiage used to justify keeping schools closed. There's a link to an article here. It says Randy Weingartner, who is she's one of the heads of one of the major teachers unions, and she's been on the news quite a bit lately. And she tells them the CDC asked for some help, and she gave some language, and the CDC used it almost verbatim as justification to keep the schools closed. Now, of course, the unions, by and large, a lot of them didn't want to hold school at all. They wanted to stay home and still collect a check. Now, I don't know what entitles them to be able to not work, and maybe they were working from home. I don't know, but they've been a major impediment for getting the kids back to school. Luckily, where I am, school's been in session this whole year. They recently lifted the mask mandate in the schools. So now all of a sudden you have kids who have only seen eyeballs before. Now are, my son said it was almost as if it was the first day of school again, and we're in May, school's almost done. So these kids are having a great time, and it's been really neat for us to, this sounds so weak. Like, thank you for letting us hold school, like as if we owe them anything. So do you see with so many of these things, when this is just kind of a reaction to things, when people start to turn the screws on people, are we going to see kind of a homeschooling movement that kind of explodes and goes crazy? Or have you thought some of these things through, Adam? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, more privatization of schooling, maybe some more charter schools. I think those are all great solutions. Those are great solutions that address poor education in inner cities as well. And so, I don't know how you can not be on board with that, other than you're part of the union and you like your paycheck and you're unfireable. That seems to make sense. But these unions hold a lot of power, and I don't think they have the best interest of the children at all. And probably I don't even think they have the best interest of the teachers. But there's a lot of teachers that go along with it.
I think we're going to see quite a few things that we've talked about this with Bitcoin. You're going to see a lot of things that just come up organically and displace traditional systems. This happens all the time. This isn't like this is something new. With each revolution, the Industrial Revolution, the whatever revolution, this revolution, that revolution. You can tell how much of a historian I am. With every change in technology, it can bring about huge new opportunities and remove opportunities from other people that the horse and buggy makes way for the automobile, so to speak. And I think we're going to see some major changes in education, not just in K through 12, but in the collegiate area. Colleges are becoming so politicized nowadays that I'm literally telling my kids, unless you're going to be a dentist or a doctor or a veterinarian or an engineer, something that requires you to have this type of thing, you know, I don't see what you'd be better off doing something else. Now, I don't know what, you know, I'm not telling them what to do. I'm just giving them some advice. I'm saying this, you're way overpaying for this. You're going to possibly go into debt for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And will that job even be viable when you get out? We're going to talk about a little bit later some of the banking jobs that are going to be displaced by Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. It's going to be really a sight to see. And I have friends in the banking industry. It's not like I am worried for the future of those type of things. So, okay, then we have, I think we're kind of beating a dead horse here. The CDC director, as far away as March 29th, went on a YouTube, at least I saw this on YouTube, and was very emotional and said, there's impending doom for the states, because the case counts were going up, the hospitalizations were going up, supposedly. And then a month and a half later, oh, never mind. We don't like the heat on all of our other positions, so we want to kind of loosen it up. You have now this was very interesting. Now I don't know why it wasn't showing. Let me see if I can get this to play on your side too, so you can hear it.
It is an amazing thing. I mean, I will just tell you at a personal level, I'm sorry for speaking of all that in such personal terms with Dr. Walensky, but when I was talking to people today about this new guidance and what to ask her, everybody had very personal feelings about it, and I realized I did too, and all these questions. Part of it is that I feel like I'm going to have to rewire myself so that when I see somebody out in the world who's not wearing a mask, I don't instantly think you are a threat, or you are selfish, or you are a COVID denier, and you definitely haven't been vaccinated. I mean, we're going to have to rewire the way that we look at each other, because the CDC's guidance, which she just told me, we are sure, is that if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask except in very specific circumstances. And so that means as we change that as a country, we are going to look at each other differently and have to unwire our preconceptions about what a mask or a lack of a mask means. President Biden spoke to that a little bit today, asking for people to, President Biden actually and Dr. Fauci both spoke to that today, asking for people to essentially be patient, be compassionate, give people respect for whatever they decide on this front, because with this changing guidance, we're going to now have changing norms, and we got to give each other space to have feelings about that as we go through what's going to be a big change that's going to create a lot of visceral reaction in a lot of us just in our day-to-day lives. It's a big day, big change.
Big change, Adam. Does she have a point?
Oh my goodness. Well, at least she has some self-awareness. but the fact that she needs self-awareness about such a silly thing is you know, to me and you, that it just seems so ridiculous that she can't. She's wired, that you've wired yourself so hard to believing that the other guy is this, that, and the other, and she makes all kinds of these great generalizations. You know, you're a denier, and you're you know, you're harmful to me. I mean, it's lovely that we do that to our fellow Americans, right? That this one issue has become so ingrained in the hearts of and souls of people that they believe this mask is a protection against this virus. This little thing is keeping me from being infected, and it's keeping you from being affected. And they buy this so hardcore that, yes, they do have to rewire their brains now, because they've been fed a load of shit for a year and a half now. So,
well, it's not just
I guess
them,
I can
everyone
have,
has.
yeah, I guess I can have compassion for that, and you know, yeah, but that's what we're dealing with. We're still dealing with this battle, this battle of, you know, mask versus not mask, left versus right. It's like, it seems so silly to me. It's like, let's just go with what we have and everybody move on. And, the numbers seem to be getting better. They seem to support where, it's funny that people are the average American and, a few brave governors and mayors around the country have been out in front of the science on this. They said, here's what I see. I've been reading this other stuff, and here's the data on this. Let's go with it. And now the supposed science, which is really just institutional administration, bureaucracy, has caught up to that. Finally, the science has caught up to itself. That's an amazing point in in the whole course of this last year.
And this goes back to our discussion last week that there's a certain group of people who value authority over data and vice versa. And so, I don't think you can necessarily say this is, although it's kind of split that way, a Republican versus Democrat issue. Because there are plenty of there are people in every political party that are very in tune with authority, and they really want that. I think sometimes it just depends on who's in power.
Sure.
And there's a lot of interesting discussion about that, and we've talked about it before. Anyway, rewiring our brains. I don't know. Like I said, weird stuff going on. So there was some pretty crazy things going on in the Middle East. Now, I'm no expert. I know that you're way more of a knowledgeable person on this front than I am, Adam. I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I have
Israel.
3 degrees. I have 3 degrees in Middle East foreign affairs. 3.
And got them all online and from Sergey.
No, they didn't. This was in a previous lifetime. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the Middle East. Now Trump's been made fun of for having he went out on having these what were they called? Something accords.
Peace accords.
Some sort of peace accords and they were saying, oh, these countries were allies anyway. Well, a lot of those may have been allies with us, but they weren't necessarily allies between each other. And so there was quite a bit of actual kind of cooperation going on. Now there was a lot of accusations that they were doing it for money, and there could be an angle there. Trump wanted a hotel here or there. I don't know if that's true or not. But as soon as Trump leaves, Biden comes in. All of a sudden, the Middle East is on fire. Is that a coincidence?
Well, I think strong leadership, right? It certainly dictates to the world what, how and what you're willing to do. And Trump knows how to see the issue and see the nuance of an issue. And he looks at it from a different angle than the traditional military-industrial complex, which just wants to fund wars because it keeps them in business and keeps them building bigger arsenals and having power and control. And now you have what we have at the Pentagon, which is a joke. And he comes in there and he looks at things from a different angle. He goes, no, well, if we just put this, he's kind of this ultimate Tetris player, and let's put this piece over here and let's incentivize these guys and let's tweak these guys, and I'm going to push back on these guys, and I'm going to do it in my nice, art of the deal. My negotiate. I'm going to use my negotiating skills, and we're going to get in there, and we're going to get these guys. They're going to think they're getting what they want, but we're actually going to get what we want. That was Trump's thing. He was good at making the other guy think he was getting what he was wanting. When he was actually getting, what was in the best interest of the United States. Now, maybe not in all cases, but he certainly tamed the waters, and you were kind of going, man, we get ISIS doesn't seem to be nearly the issue it was during the Obama administration, and now, peace in the middle, the relative peace in the Middle East. You got Iran kind of wringing their hands in the background, but not doing anything other than maybe an occasional flirtation in the oceans around that region. But yeah, I mean, it's an amazing thing. And now all of a sudden you get back and let's be honest here. Biden's not in charge, right? I don't know who's running this administration. He is just say this. And it's hard for me to believe he's actually pulling these strings and actually making actual decisions. I think he's just input, output, and somebody else is really pulling all these different strings.
I don't have any evidence of this. But you know how most people sleep 7 to 8 hours a night and then are awake the rest of the time? I think that's the opposite for him. I think he's awake 7 to 8 hours a day and is asleep for the rest of the time.
Well, and thank goodness he's awake only 7 hours.
I know. What more could he do? He's constantly saying, I need to stop talking or else I'll get in trouble. Well, get in trouble with who?
You're the boss.
Who are you going to get in trouble with? Barack Obama? A lot of people think that. Okay, tell me if my analogy is off here.
No.
I don't know if this is going to work or not, and I'm probably going to offend a lot of people. Trump, when you're in a relationship, the husband-wife relationship, sometimes the woman just needs to talk, and then the guy comes in and tries to fix things. So the world is the woman just wanting to talk and just not really get anything done. They just want their feelings to be heard. Trump's the guy who goes, okay, I see what's going on here. Let's move, just like you're saying, the little Tetris. I need this piece here. I need this piece there. I'm going to actually do it, when the world doesn't actually want that. Am I off there, or is that a valid analogy?
Well, I can't speak for the whole women and men analogy thing, but as far as, yes, he is doing things that the rest of the world does not really want. They don't like disruption. They want the Tetris pieces in ways that it just creates more chaos in the world. They don't want the nice uniform geometry that makes the board continue. They like disorganization. So you're accurate there.
All right. Okay.
But that's only because I'm a wimp and I don't want to take a side on the whole the sex argument.
Okay. So this is a synopsis of what's happening in the Middle East right now. Biden gives Iran money. The Biden administration, when Trump was in, they stopped this Iran nuclear deal that Barack Obama had going, which they always said, it's just for nuclear energy, But there were very few ways to verify that, and everyone suspected that they were and are using this nuclear deal, to create nuclear weapons. And so when Trump gets in, he says, this nuclear deal with Iran's off. Well, now Biden is that's back on, apparently. And in addition to that, in my understanding, they've given them some money. Let me pull up this article here. Sorry, my nose is itching too.
Allergy season.
Okay, Biden's overtures to Iran undercut U.S. bid to end Hamas-Israel conflict. This will be in the notes. This is a New York Post article. With rockets flying and violence escalating in the Gaza Strip, the Biden administration announced Wednesday that it dispatched Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Hadi Amr to the region in an effort to broker calm between Israel and the terrorist group Hamas. The likelihood of a successful mission is low, but it's not Amr's fault. It's President Joe Biden's. His Middle East foreign policy is simply out of sync with his mission. So they're talking about how, on the one hand, they're helping Iran. On the other, Iran is giving money to Hamas. Hamas is then using that money to shoot rockets into Israel. Okay, that's basically this is my understanding of it. Says Iran has long known to have provided Hamas with entire rocket systems, rocket parts, training and assembly, cash support, and other means to enhance the terrorist organization's military capabilities over the years. So, and then it talks about the nuclear deal and things like that. So you have Biden indirectly funding Hamas, and then on the other hand, we are an ally to Israel. So it's kind of a weird dynamic that's going on right now. You have Hamas firing rockets at Israel, and I do want to show this image. Israel defends itself with the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is a missile defense system that's actually pretty amazing. Let me show this image. This is from the New York Post. So you have these rockets firing straight at Israel. Then you have these other ones, they have telemetry that somehow, I don't know if it's radar or infrared, or I don't know how they lock onto these rockets, but the Israel has the capability of shooting down these rockets, it's amazing. It's like shooting a bullet from the sky, basically. The technology that's got to go into this is amazing. So Israel defends itself against these rockets, of course. And then Israel is portrayed as the bad guy. Whenever you see something that comes out of the news that is painting Israel in a poor light, I immediately am skeptical. Now, this is true with most articles, most news that comes out nowadays, but especially with Israel, because any sort of news that comes out seems to portray them in a negative light. It's, this military person for Israel shot and killed someone. Well, what they didn't say was that person was shooting at them and they were defending themselves. They may say that in the article, but in the headline, it's always, portraying Israel in a bad light. Okay, so Israel defends itself. Israel comes out and says, this is funny in a way. They said, we're sending ground troops to the Gaza Strip. So this causes all the Hamas commanders and a lot of people to go underground they have a network of tunnels. Well, Israel anticipated this. They played the news. They seeded this idea to the news that Israel was going in, their military was going in. And so the news dutifully, yes, we have to tell all the world this, that Israel is doing a ground strike, which they did. Well, they didn't actually do the ground strike. So everyone scurries into their tunnels, and Israel takes out these tunnels. I don't know how they did it with rockets or missiles or what, but they take out these tunnels. They lure them into the tunnels through some media manipulation, and this rubbed the media the wrong way to no end. And they really got all bent up about this, yeah. Which is kind of sweet. It's interesting to see.
It's a sweet strategy, and the other thing that we should mention is that Israel and the this dome that protects Israel. Israel is made up of Palestinians as well, huge numbers of Palestinians. They live next door. They are the neighbors, literally, of Israelis, and so they're protecting them too. This is. But somehow the media doesn't think that they should be able to protect themselves, I guess. I don't know.
No, it's just so, these stories just don't ever make sense to me. Okay, yeah. So then Israel, they probably knew about this building for a long time. There was a building that housed Hamas militants. There were weapons there. Now, I haven't seen evidence of this, but they supposedly have shown this to people in the know, and it was pretty well known in the area that Hamas was in this building. Coincidentally, the AP had an office there. The AP, the Associated Press. So Israel, they decide to take out this building, and they give an hour notice. They make sure that there's nobody in the building, and they take it down with rockets. They shoot these rockets at the foundation. It's actually pretty amazing to see. I didn't know you could take a building down like that. So they shot rockets into the foundation. The building collapses, and I don't think anyone died, but they did take out this major kind of hub of activity for the terrorists. Of course, the media has to make it about them. The AP says we had no idea that Hamas was there.
Sure.
They didn't notice the rockets being launched from next door. They didn't see the people going up and down. I mean, okay, this story doesn't reflect on the AP well in any sort of way. You either knew that they were there and were complicit, or you didn't, and you're a terrible news organization. You have no idea what's going on right under your noses. Does the AP have an office in Israel?
I don't know.
Isn't that an interesting question? Like, do they, it's probably right on the border. That Gaza Strip is not that big.
Right.
It's got to be from the sea to Israel, 10 miles or something? It's not very, I may be way off, but it can't be that far from Israel.
Right.
And some news articles have come out that have shown that the AP had to have known about this. So they take down the building. Now my wife is not, and I'm not really either as far as Israel goes. I just know to reflexively reject what the news puts out and read the actual story before I make any sort of conclusions. So she saw something on Instagram that didn't reflect well in the Israel army, and I told her the same thing. If whatever you see there's always something behind that story. Israel has a right to defend itself. So, and this is kind of what it comes down to me. If Hamas and Palestine stopped firing rockets at Israel, there would be peace. And if Israel stopped defending itself, there'd be no Israel. So this is kind of just how it boils down to me on who is right in their actions. Now there's a dispute over the land. They're saying this goes back a long time. This isn't like this is something new. I don't know enough about this. Maybe Adam, you can tell us the history of Israel and let us know.
Next time. Yeah, for sure.
Next time. So I have a link here in the notes. It's from Glenn Beck. So Glenn, he does his research. Now, you may disagree with his opinions, but what he's researching here is, and I'm not going to go all the way into the details. This is on his site, Observations of an Irishman. This is written by someone else, but it's on his site. Concise and factual 4,000 years of Israeli history. So it goes back to 2000 BC, the first Jewish tribes and kingdoms settle in Israel. So they're saying that Israel took the land. Well, I think it's gone back and forth, but as far back as we have records for, I think it's been Israel's land. I may be wrong, but that's how I see it. So anyway, it's just a really, it's an interesting thing. So on another kind of tangent, it's a related idea to this. There's a CNN contributor named Adil Raja. Now when you're a conservative, you can make a claim. If you say that the election was stolen, you can get your Twitter account. You can get banned from social media permanently. If you say that, if you talk about vaccines in a way that doesn't promote them, you can be banned indefinitely. If you do things that are against the media narrative, you can be banned from social media and have no recourse. Well, this contributor, Adil Raja, he says on Twitter, the world today needs a Hitler. Now, he was speaking with that in relation to the Jews. He was talking about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and that was the context behind his tweet. And you go, okay, that was just a one-time deal. I'm being facetious a little bit, because I don't think you really, unless you're a comedian and you like have a history of joking, like making Hitler jokes, he's not a comedian. This is a contributor to CNN. He's made quite a few similar statements in the past. So this is the only reason I'm supporting Germany in the finals is Hitler was a German and he did good with those Jews.
Nice. Nice.
2014. My support for Germany is due to what Hitler did with Jews. Okay. Palestinian genocide, inner Hitler among Germans must resurface. Heck yeah. Okay, so this isn't a Hail Hitler, he says. Hail Hitler.
Nice guy. Nice guy.
So you can be banned for questioning the narrative if you're on the right, but go far as to actually praise Hitler, and no problem. And we've actually seen that that's true. A journalist contacted Twitter. This is T. Beckett Adams. Verified users who tweet in support of the slaughter of Jews will not be banned, provided they eventually delete their pro-genocide messages, a Twitter spokesman told me this weekend. I thought this was a joke, but this is a real thing that they that they said. It's just it's okay to hate the Jews. They call the people on the right Hitler all the time, but the people on the right typically are supportive of Israel and supportive of the Jews. That's the way that I see it. It's always the ones on the left who are pro-Palestinian who think they have a problem with the Jews. Can you explain this? What am I missing here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a question a lot of people on the right have always asked. I have no explanation for it. I really don't. I don't. It seems like the right is the biggest supporter of Israel, and of course, isn't Bernie Sanders? Isn't he a Jew?
Seems like it. I don't know.
And he's saying all kinds of hateful things about the state of Israel. So maybe, I mean, there's. And it's not like it's not like everybody in Israel is an Orthodox Jew either. I mean, we know people that are fairly secular Jews or atheist Jews that live in Israel, or at least we know one who was.
Yeah, we have a mutual friend who lives in Israel.
And maybe he can explain it. Then that would be an interesting thing, is to have him on and talk about this.
Yeah,
subject.
That would be an interesting conversation.
You could probably.
I don't get it. So they compare the people on the right to Hitler. Every president that I can remember has been called Hitler, and every Republican president. And okay, Hitler was a nationalist. Okay. Does it? Not every person who is a nationalist is Hitler.
Right.
Hitler, the Nazi is a National Socialist Party. Okay, we're definitely not socialists. I know that they say, "Oh, that's not really what they meant." Well, it is. If you look at what they were doing, it was very socialistic.
Well, in fascism, here's the whole thing: is everybody thinks that the political scale is this linear thing, right? And you've got left and you've got right, and on the left you have the hyper extreme is socialism, or and beyond, communism, and on the right you have fascism, would be the extremist view. Well, really, I don't think that's. You have to look at what the ultimate outcome of that is, and it's government controlled. Doing it through different means, but the government controlling the population, controlling the means of the economy, and really, I think it's a better thing to look at it kind of circular. And when you look at it that way, if you go kind of moderate and then conservative, liberal, left, right, and then you get to this point of extremism, fascism and socialism, they come together, right? And they're actually the same thing, because in the end, it's a very authoritarian system that subjugates the people to a single will. And the people have no power. They have no power of decision, no power of control in their lives. and the government and the bureaucracies that are mingled with the government have all the power. And so I think that's a better way of viewing this, is that in the end, call it socialism or fascism, it's two words that basically describe the same terrible situation. I don't know, does that seem reasonable to you? We've lost a mic. All right. I made Tyler speechless.
Can you hear me?
I gotcha.
That was a great synopsis, and I apologize. My setup is really touchy. If I change anything and there's like a little static, it shuts off my mic, so I got to figure that out. So what did you say real quickly?
I said there's not that much distance between fascism and socialism, right? I think a better way to look at the political spectrum is to see it as a circular
As a circle.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have on the top, you have, well, communism and fascism are just kind of sisters. There's control.
There's different types of control, but in the end, it's authoritarian.
And on the other spectrum, you have freedom. So you have communism and fascism on one side, and they try to make it a left and right issue. This is what you were saying, when it's really, in reality, not. There's control by the government, or fascism is kind of a private control, but there's a private and government kind of interaction there. Mm-hmm. There's a government control of private industry, whereas communism is, there's really no private industry. It's all government owned. So it's really just a different flavor of the same type of totalitarianism, just different levels of it. And on the other hand, you have freedom. So yeah, like you're saying, it's they try to paint this as a left and right issue, and it's really not.
Yeah. And in the end, both systems are so destructive that they destroy economies and they destroy livelihoods. And so it doesn't even resemble what you might think of as social democracy or capitalism, which would be higher towards the top, which is towards moderate governments.
So, the question a lot of people ask, why do we support Israel so much? Well, they're the only country in the Middle East that supports any sort of civil rights. And we also have an interest in they kind of have our interest there. It's a kind of a proxy for the United States in many regards. And so there's a lot of interactions. I don't understand it all. If we're wrong, if you're listening to this and you think we're wrong, let us know. But I think it is important to, when you do have a country in the Middle East that does provide people with civil rights, the ability to vote, the ability for women to do kind of basically what they want. The gays, is that okay to say, the gays?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know another word for it.
I saw a joke, and again, I'm going to anger a lot of people. I saw this on Twitter, and I just had a real good chuckle about it. And it said, a friend asked me if I were pro-gay, and I said, I'm not even amateur gay. I don't even. Did they have teams? I didn't even know that there was a pro and an. It was like, are you pro-gay? No, I'm not even amateur gay.
I'm pro live and let live. How about that?
Yeah. Okay, so that's Israel. Just the people that get all upset about it that I normally wouldn't side with are getting upset about it. So then I have, again, this is just one of those spidey sense things that goes on when you see something come out about Israel. Just automatically don't believe it. Like you gotta see what they're saying about that article. Okay, I don't know how long we'll spend on this, but I think it's interesting. Bitcoin. So Bitcoin and Elon Musk have been having a spat this past little bit. And so a month or two ago, Tesla, through Elon Musk, they buy $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Now, I think Bitcoin was about 40,000 at the time. So whatever, 1.5 billion divided by 40,000, it's that many Bitcoin. It was a lot of Bitcoin. And he says he'll accept Bitcoin for Teslas. So this was I think it's smart for many companies to do that because Bitcoin is becoming the best store of value out there. Again, this is all marketing. Elon Musk is all about the marketing. Then, inexplicably, he starts pumping what's called Dogecoin. Now, Dogecoin was created after Bitcoin was made as a joke. This guy made it in a couple hours. It was basically a copy of Bitcoin with a few minor differences. And it was a joke. It was started in like 2015 or 16. It was basically dead for since then. And then all of a sudden, Elon Musk comes in and starts pumping it. And it goes from less than a penny to up to, I think it got up to 70 cents per Dogecoin, which made some people a lot of money. If you bought, you could buy, that's a big, huge percentage leap from basically nothing into almost $1. So then the Bitcoin community is going, why are you doing this? Why are you pumping this? Because a lot of people are going to get hurt. This is reminiscent of the GameStop thing that was going on. There were these retail investors who saw that some institutional people were shorting GameStop, and they decided to do a short squeeze, which basically means the people who are shorting the stock, eventually, if the price goes too high, they have to buy back the stock. And so they short squoze these people. And so I think this was kind of a similar take on that. Although there was no short selling. It was just kind of a funny thing to do. Then Musk gets mad. He says he's no longer accepting Bitcoin and will work with Doge developers to make transactions faster and cheaper. Okay. As I've done quite a bit of research into Bitcoin, and they're what they call settlement layers. And so you want your settlement layer, the base layer of your money, to be as secure as possible. It doesn't have to be lightning quick. And then you have layers on top of that, which can be the quick layers that you buy things with that are settled instantly. And this is how the financial system is based right now. There's a settlement layer of treasuries and bonds and things like that, and behind the scenes that take a long time to settle. And then on the top you have Visa and MasterCard and PayPal, which are quick. But behind the scenes, the actual settlements take a long time. You have these, and I think I mentioned this before, you have, because I ran a business where I would take credit cards. And so I would take the credit cards and process them. And it basically said, okay, you're going to process these. It checked to see that there was a balance. And then at one time a day, it would actually process those transactions and then move money. And so that's the way that they're looking at the way that Bitcoin should be. So then he says, him saying that he's no longer going to take Bitcoin tanks Bitcoin. It was, at the time of that, it was about 55,000. Took it down to 40,000 approximately. I think it's around 45,000 right now. So now everyone's ticked off at Elon Musk. And then he says, you're going to, I know you like when we talk about carbon credits and that type of thing. Now he comes out and tweets, we need a carbon tax. So now he's using this environmental angle because they're trying to portray themselves as an environmental company. Unless you really look behind the scenes and see where all the power is coming from that charges the vehicles, to see where the lithium comes from, to see the work conditions from the people who mine that lithium.
Yeah.
The
cost of transporting materials across the world back and forth and one side of the globe to another, transportation of oil, which takes up oil, right? The carbon footprint's much bigger.
Yeah, so it's that doesn't mean that eventually we won't work through these technological issues and make it, come out with a battery that doesn't require rare earth minerals and things like that. But he's kind of a hypocrite, and a lot of people are exposing him as such. Yeah, of course he is kind of visionary. Let's create this. He's an initiate, maybe many would say. He's created this electric car company, SpaceX. He wants to visit Mars, but none of his companies have actually made any money. And I think this is one of the reasons that he may be kind of doing some of this. They have a big business selling carbon credits. Did you know that they did this?
I didn't know that Tesla was doing that. Is Tesla doing that?
Yeah. So I'll share this on the screen. No, I won't, because I might lose the microphone again. Tesla stands to lose lucrative business selling CO2 credits to Fiat Chrysler successor Stellantis. And so now I don't know how they were entitled to be even able to sell these credits. And I think these credits, I don't know if they have an actual, if they're just indulgences, because that's the way it seems to me. A lot of these things
for sure are. Yeah, no, that's what all this stuff's about. These are straight out of the Middle Ages. Paying for your sins.
The Chrysler is they have their own electric cars coming out, so now they don't need these carbon credits, and so Tesla was able to sell them somehow, and they're going to lose billions of dollars in revenue, and so now he's trying to. And it's very short-sighted. Once you start to understand the way that Bitcoin works, it does use a large amount of energy, but there's a reason for that. There's a big debate right now between proof of work and proof of stake. Proof of work is what Bitcoin is based off of, and it makes it basically impossible for someone to attack the network unless they have a commensurate amount of work going into it to offset everyone else. So it's very similar to the way that gold is. In order to bring any sort of gold to market, you have to put forth a large amount of energy. Because proof of stake, a lot of people are saying it's basically just like fiat money. You can just say, okay, I'm doing this, and here it is. And all it's backed by is a small level of encryption. But Bitcoin is backed by a huge amount of energy, a huge amount of encryption, a huge amount of hash rate. So I just wanted to talk about that just a little bit. I'm going to read a thread. Okay. Okay, this is from some random Twitter guy. Every bull market, the lie of faster altcoins. Altcoins are coins that are not Bitcoin. Resurfaces. Litecoin is not faster than Bitcoin. Dogecoin is not faster than Bitcoin. Bitcoin actually settles in less time than any other cryptocurrency. But to understand why that is, you have to understand what settlement is. So this is what I was talking about with the settlement layer. In a theoretical sense, final settlement doesn't exist. The reason I'm even going into this is because I think Bitcoin is the future of a lot of things. And I think this goes to, kind of the systems that we would like to base off our voting systems will be on Bitcoin. And so I think it's important to understand some of the fundamentals behind Bitcoin. That's the reason I'm doing it. In a theoretical sense, final settlement doesn't exist at all on any blockchain. What settlement assurance you do get from a blockchain is a function of the energy an attacker would have to expend in order to rewrite your transactions or spend their own coins twice. But with enough electricity, any blockchain can be rewritten by hostile miners who want to go back in time, change or delete transactions, then remine everything that happened up until the present. What keeps hostile miners from doing so is the electricity they will need to overpower the friendly miners and satisfy the proof of work difficulty of the blocks they're trying to rewrite. So let's consider the imaginary example of coin X. It features 5-second block times. Right now, the block times for Bitcoin are 10 minutes. And claims to be faster than Bitcoin. So you can download the CoinX node software or a CoinX wallet for your phone and withdraw your CoinX coins from an exchange. 5 seconds later, you get a confirmed notification because the CoinX miner have included your transactions into a block. But despite what the software says, in reality, you have no assurance that this transaction can't be rolled back until a significant amount of electricity has been spent by the entire CoinX network to make it prohibitively difficult for an attacker to erase your transaction. In Bitcoin, it is common practice to wait 6 blocks for settlement assurance. With 10-minute blocks, 6 blocks is just Bitcoin speak for about an hour. It means that your transaction is buried under the electricity consumption of the entire network for about an hour. So how much electricity is that? Well, no one knows exactly how much energy Bitcoin miners consume, but the estimate are anywhere between 55 to 120 terawatt hours per year. So let's take that average use, 87.5 terawatt hours. So that equals a huge amount of kilowatt hours. There are 8,760 hours in a year. That equals 9 million, almost 10 million kilowatts used in 1 hour. This amount of energy expended is what secures your transaction, not the block time, not the confirmed icon, not even cryptography. So let's compare Bitcoin to CoinX. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that CoinX has 1 megawatt of constant power on its network. This would be less than Bitcoin, but it would still be a lot of electricity. 1 megawatt equals 1,000 kilowatts. 1,000 kilowatts for 24 hours is 24,000 kilowatts. So in order to get a CoinX security guarantee that is equivalent to Bitcoin, you'd have to wait for 7 million something CoinX blocks, which would take 1.14 years. Last year, Bitcoin moved anywhere between 5 billion to 48 billion in value every day. A network moving that much value requires the fastest and most trustworthy settlement assurances possible. Bitcoin provides this through the way miners consume energy on the network. This is why anytime you read about faster block times, you know it's 100% pure BS. People who complain that Bitcoiners are too brusque need to understand the level of forbearance required to understand the truth of what I've laid out, and yet have to watch helplessly for a decade as billionaires and scammers perpetuate naked lies in the face of it. There's an interesting battle going on in Bitcoin, and I do think that Bitcoin is the superior technology for what it's designed to do, which is be a store of value, something that you can hand down from generation to generation. It's displacing gold. Is that it's reformulating the entire financial system. I saw, well, we have a mutual forum, Adam and I, and one of the people asked the question, do you foresee the Federal Reserve being eliminated in the next 15 years? Well, Bitcoin is one way to do that. I don't know if it'll eliminate it completely, but it does make it less relevant. And so there are a lot of things. This is kind of a thread that we have talked about before. The technology that's going to happen is not, we're not going to ask permission to do that. It may not be something that comes about by legislation, by a vote of people, a vote of legislators, because right now they're loath to do anything that upsets anyone else in Washington, D.C. That's what part of citizen representatives is. The goal of citizen representatives is to make it so the people have more power over what happens to them. What do you see, Adam? What am I missing something with Bitcoin? Are there, what's the scoop?
No, I think that was a good. Obviously it's very complex, and that was that you pointed out some things that I wasn't aware of that I think certainly bode well. I've read about Bitcoin too, and a lot of sharp thinkers out there seem to think that Bitcoin will prevail because of its, it kind of initiated this movement of blockchain. It's established, and it would be hard to upset it. And I think you've made a good argument that some of the things that are in place with Bitcoin keep it very stable over the long term. In addition to the fact that once we reach, 26 million Bitcoins mined?
21.
21. That's it, right? There's no more to be done. And so the currency will be established by then. So who knows? I think for certain, from my perspective, blockchain or some iteration of blockchain perhaps is the future. I think that's the way that we move forward. It seems like this technology is the way that we stabilize currency and create platforms that are secure and solve a lot of the issues, like we talk about free speech and things like that. This is one way to ensure that we do that. Bitcoin, I'm certainly a proponent of it. I cheerlead it just because I'm hopeful for it, and because it is the predominant cryptocurrency. It's the first. So it seems to have the best chance to accomplish some of these things that we talk about that can make corrective issues in society.
Bitcoin itself, the idea and the story behind it can't ever be replicated, because first of all, nothing has ever come out like Bitcoin before. The inventor of Bitcoin is pseudonymous. We don't know who he is. He hasn't been heard of in many, many years. The coins that he mined at the beginning haven't been touched, so we don't know if he's dead or eventually going to claim those coins at some time. Nobody knows. There's not a centralized figure that we can go that the government can go after. Now you compare that with Ethereum. Now Ethereum has a lot of benefits, but if it's not, it's way more centralized than Bitcoin. And in the beginning of Ethereum, there was a hack of Ethereum, and the developers of Ethereum basically rolled back a bunch of transactions and undid that hack. Now that's still possible. Because Ethereum is centralized way in much more it's way more centralized than Bitcoin. Bitcoin, it'd be almost impossible to undo anything like that. It's just the story of it. There's I can't remember if I've told this story before. Gab, which is it's an alternative social media site similar to Twitter. They came out and said, we want to build our services on Ethereum. And because they were viewed as a right-wing outfit, Ethereum said, no, we won't allow it. Like, how is that possible? How is that go in line with the idea of blockchain, that anyone can do anything on there and it can't be censored?
Right.
So that threw up some really major red flags with me with Ethereum. And but go ahead.
No, I was going to point out too that when, for people that kind of watch the crypto market, I do to a minimum, just because I look at my account. I don't have a huge dollars invested, but I have, full disclosure, I have a tiny bit of Bitcoin. I've got some Ethereum. I've got some of these different Litecoin, just a variety of small investments. I mean, we're not talking huge amounts of money. But I watch it on a daily basis because it's such a curious thing. And I look at it all as just kind of a long-term investment, like, 10 years. We'll see what happens. But the curious thing is that, even though some of these smaller coins, these altcoins, jump here and there, and they have moments where they gain a lot of following and there's a lot of capital infusion. Overall, everything trends according to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the leader in the market. And you watch when Bitcoin surges, everything else follows. When Bitcoin goes down, everything else liquidates. And so it's to your point, I think it indicates that the market has, the market overall has kind of accepted Bitcoin. And you see that now as these large corporations and countries, for better or worse, are getting involved in this market and realizing, we better jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon while we can.
That's a really interesting space, and I would invite the viewers and listeners to investigate more. I think the smartest people that I see, and of course I just have my own blinders. I only see what I see, so I can't say that everyone out there, but the smartest people that I've seen talk about it, about crypto in general, say that Bitcoin is the best. It's the way to go. Of course, there are some offshoots that may do this or that better, but for what we're really trying to do, which is change money, Bitcoin is the granddaddy of that. It's the big one.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot today. I don't know that any of it made sense. Please let us know if it did. Please let us know if it didn't. At the beginning of the podcast, I said my name was Adam. I was hopeful there. I was having an out-of-body moment, I think.
I think your name is now Adam. You are the first and the last.
I just got a new name, and it was
the Alpha and the Omega.
So yeah, that was interesting. So this has been another Citizen Representatives podcast. I'd like to thank my friend Adam and me, Adam, for being on on this podcast. We're it's a long journey. We're starting to get some traction. It's very slow, but I do see some buds of fruit. I don't see actual fruit yet. I do see some blossoms, but so it's a slow go. We're available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. We're available. Look for Citizen Representatives. We're available on Facebook. We're available on Google. I do have a Twitter account. I mainly use that to get my news. I don't tweet a lot. We have an Instagram account. That's mainly to. I don't even know what I'm doing with that yet. I'm not very good at Instagram. But we do have those accounts, and you can reach us through there. Of course, our website, citizenrepresentatives.org, and for short, citreps.org, CITREPS.org. So we'd encourage you to volunteer. If you have special skills, if you volunteer your money, that's always encouraged. We have a place to donate on the website. Again, we appreciate you spending time with us, and we will catch you next time.